Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining me today for my review of the 2013 film Texas Chainsaw 3D, directed by John Luessenhop and starring Alexandra Daddario. So, this movie, Texas Chainsaw 3D, is a part of the Texas Chainsaw Massacre series, and for the most part, from what I've seen, it has a pretty bad reputation. Most people seem to think this is one of the worst, if not the worst, Texas Chainsaw Massacre. A lot of people think Return is worse, but I'll get to that on the channel someday. But what are my thoughts on this movie? Well, I gotta say, although I don't think it's really technically a very good movie, there are some things that I actually like about this film. Surprise, surprise. And I know this will be controversial, but I do prefer this to the 2003 Jessica Biel film. While Jessica Biel actually gave a decent performance, I don't think she's the problem with that movie. I pretty much disliked strongly everything else about that film. So this one has a few things that I like, although then I will get into the problems of the film as well. So Texas Chainsaw 3D does have a very good lead performance from Alexandra Daddario. I thought she actually did a really good job in this movie considering what she was given to work with. There's also a couple good kill scenes in this film, which is more than I can say for the 2003 film at least. And so, if you're into that, the gore in this movie is done pretty well in my opinion. Um, Also, while the first two-thirds of this movie is kind of a slog to get through, which I'll get into more here in a minute, I did think the last act of the film, at least the film did build up a little bit and there's some decent tension. And I actually thought the last 10 to 15 minutes of this movie was pretty good and kind of delivered, which is surprising considering how the movie struggles in the first few acts for sure. I also appreciate, while I don't think the execution was perfect, I appreciate that they tried to do something a little different with Leatherface. I kind of like the plot of this film. I thought they could have done more with it, but basically Alexandra Daddario's character is a descendant or relative of Leatherface's family, and when she inherits a house, the plot kind of goes from there. But some of the things they did with Leatherface in this film, I really enjoyed. And also the main character, her name is Heather, was pretty interesting at times, I thought. Could have been executed better, but I appreciate they didn't just copy other movies. They tried to go their own way. Also, there's a cool Marilyn Burns from the actress from the original film. She has a cool little cameo in this movie that's actually relevant. She just doesn't appear for no reason. It's actually relevant to the plot. I appreciated that as well. But unfortunately, that's where the positives of this film kind of end. So I mentioned Alexandra Daddario gives a good performance. Unfortunately, the rest of the acting in this film, what's a nice way to say it? It's not good. It's subpar. Some of the other acting in this film I didn't care for. I didn't think it was very good at all. But to be fair, I don't think it's all the actors and actresses' faults. The dialogue, the writing in this film is bad. It's not so much that the plot is awful. It's just that the things the characters say, maybe I just don't know enough people. People I know do not talk like this. I don't like when these kind of horror movies make characters just talk in ways that feel unrealistic to me. They just say a lot of weird stuff. There were also attempts at one-liner humor. I think they were supposed to be attempts at humor in this film, and they weren't good. I did laugh out loud with how bad some of the dialogue was, but not because it was funny, if that makes sense. Yeah, the attempts at humor in this film, like I said, I think they were supposed to be humor. Not good at all. Also, while I did like the last act of this movie somewhat, the first two-thirds of this movie, it's not necessarily totally slow and boring, but there's just not enough happening, and part of that is because the side characters or supporting characters aren't interesting at all. They're there for two reasons. One is either to move the plot forward, or two is to get killed off. That's really their only function and purpose. They really don't add much of anything to the film other than that, which is never good, and it makes it kind of hard to get through certain parts of the film. Also, this is another movie that kind of has strange pacing. It's around an hour and a half long, which is totally reasonable for this kind of film. But my problem with the pacing comes more scene by scene. Some scenes feel too long, like they take forever. Other scenes feel a little bit rushed. It's like we get a lot of build up to something which is too slow, and then we get a rush scene to conclude it, if that makes sense. I just don't understand why things can't be balanced out more. Like I said, this kind of goes away at the end of the film. I would have liked to see the whole film paced the way the last 15 minutes or so were. And you know what? If you have to cut 10 minutes from the film to do that, that's fine with me. There's nothing wrong with an 80-minute movie instead of a 90-minute movie. But like I said, the movie's not too tough to get through. I think the biggest problem was just bad dialogue and uninteresting supporting characters. There's one other complaint I have, and to be fair, this is a complaint I have with a lot of horror movies, not just this one. The misleads in this movie fail. In other words, there's certain characters that they try and make you think might have one motivation. They wind up having another one, or you're kind of just uncertain about them. And I figured out which side of things every single one of them was on within the first act of the film, pretty much, which is never good. These horror movies really need to do a better job with the misleads or hiding character intentions. So, overall, while I don't think this is a great film, I'd probably give it a 2 out of 5 overall. It has a lot of problems, Texas Chainsaw 3D, but I did enjoy certain aspects of this film. Maybe I'm just a little more lenient because the ending mostly delivered for me, and because they try. I kind of tend to be a little more lenient because they tried to do their own thing instead of just copying the original film. And although I don't think the execution of it was totally fleshed out or developed well, I appreciate them trying to do something different. So I would say if you're a Texas Chainsaw fan and you want to see all the movies, you can watch this one. It's not great, but maybe worth a one-time watch. If you're not a Texas Chainsaw fan, this is not a horror movie you need to see. It's not essential. Like I said, it's about a 2 out of 5 movie for me. As always, thanks for watching.